Talking Beavers, Reser Stadium on Saturday afternoon will be the site of Oregon State's spring football game as they're getting ready to hit the get the pads on and get out there in front of some fans. It's time to bring back in Mike Parker once again. And Mike, as we look ahead to the first spring football game in the Jonathan Smith era, what excites you?
Travis, I'm excited about the spring game, not necessarily because I think we're going to see Oregon State football as it's going to be in the Jonathan Smith era per se. A lot of installation has taken place on both sides of the ball, terminology schemes, etc. A lot of teaching, a lot of laying of the foundation. But there's so many key members from a personnel standpoint that won't be participating in this game that it will be nigh into impossible to draw conclusions about, okay, this is what it's going to look like come August 31st or in Jonathan's first season as a whole. However, there is one position group, in fact two, that's pretty well intact: the offensive line and the running backs room. So I'm excited to see as Jake Luton, the quarterback, works his way back from a strength standpoint. The receivers a little dinged at tight end and the wide receiver spot. So for me to home in on what the offensive line can do in this spring game with a trio of running backs that I'm really looking forward to watching behind that line: Artavis Pierce, Calvin Tyler, B.J. Baylor. So I think that's an important group to look at that is fairly healthy, to see how they function in the new era under Jonathan Smith and coordinator Brian Lindgren and Jim Mahalchik, the offensive line coach. And Jimmy, I know that you have been intrigued by kind of a wild card guy, a converted defensive back, big Christian Wallace, who looks the part as perhaps a fourth man thrown into the fire with reference to the biblical analogy, but a fourth man that might make a mark. What is it about Christian Wallace that's intrigued you? I haven't seen him as much as you have.
Well, Mike said it right away. He said big. I mean, that's the biggest thing about Christian Wallace. He's an interesting kid because he was a heralded recruit. He came in as a defensive player. He ran the ball in high school, but as most of these guys, they did play both sides of the football. And he was very, very highly regarded and just did not pan out in the defensive backfield. The new coaching staff moved him to running back. Well, he's about 6'2", about 230, and he's explosive. And so it's just the Steven Jackson body size, I think, body style that has me intrigued. But he runs good. He really does. And I think it may be incremental in how you use him, how he develops. But just, I would say, of all those running backs, as good as Artavis Pierce is, as good as Calvin Tyler Jr., B.J. Baylor, I think Christian Wallace has the highest ceiling. Now, whether he's going to reach that, we'll see. But it is going to be fun to watch.
Sure. Well, you mentioned the size. One thing they are losing is size with Ryan Nall, who is going to be one of the players hopeful to be drafted on Thursday in the NFL draft. And, Mike, with the three guys that are draft hopefuls, what's your take on those guys?
In some respects, Travis, the draft, as far as Oregon State is concerned, it feels not empty by any means, but not quite as much attention being paid to potential draft picks. In that, from what I've read and heard, Ryan Nall may be the lone Oregon State player whose name will be called during the draft. Manasseh Hungalo and Jordan Villeman may, deep in the draft, hear their names called. But I'm intrigued by all three as prospects, particularly Ryan Nall. And I think Manasseh Hungalo, with the athletic ability that he showed, I mean, Kevin Clune, his former coordinator, said he was the best athlete at inside linebacker that he'd coach and became a very proficient football player. I think his best days are ahead of him. So Manasseh may not get drafted, but I think he's going to get a shot in a camp. And Jordan Villeman is another guy with tremendous measurables. When he first showed up here, a little bit like Jim was talking about earlier about Christian Wallace, just the body, the size, the look. Villeman has the look of an NFL receiver. And going to work, training ridiculously hard and well, I think maybe his best days are ahead of him too. So Ryan Nall, Manasseh, Jordan, I hope wherever they may end up in the draft, if at all, I think they're all going to get shots and deserve shots at the next level.
All right, Mike, thanks so much, and enjoy the series this weekend against Arizona State. We'll take a look at that here in a couple of minutes. It is time now for the Standard TV and Appliance Breakdown. Your hometown favorite since 1947. The three guys, Ryan Nall, Manasseh Hungalo, and Jordan Villeman, Jim, with Ryan Nall, where do you see him, what position do you see him playing at the next level?
I think that is the issue, and I think that's why he's probably being talked about as a Saturday or a third day guy in the NFL draft. He showed breakaway speed as a running back, and he was very good at the combine. So I think that the NFL people, they like him, they like his body, but there's concerns about what position. Is he an H-back? Is he a running back? Is he a tight end? Or is he a linebacker that can help you with special teams until you figure out what in the heck you're going to do with him? But I think that indecision from the people on the NFL side has lowered his draft stock. He still gets drafted, and he still makes a football team, in my opinion. Manasseh Hungalu, middle linebacker, and I think that's the rub. He played middle linebacker. That's a dying breed in the NFL, and so there's questions. Can he play on the outside? But the thing about Manasseh, he did show very well defensively in the passing game. Great instincts against the pass, so I think that will bode well for him. And then Jordan Villeman, he's the one guy out of the three, you know exactly what position he's going to play. He is going to be a wide receiver, and he's always been a big upside guy, and if he ever reaches that potential, he can play with anybody.
And that's the question, can he reach that potential? And it wasn't entirely his fault at Oregon State. He had a lot of inconsistencies with who was throwing him the football, but his size, I mean, that's something you can't teach.
No, you can't. And he's at 6'5", about 230 pounds. He runs well enough with that size. I think he's got a shot, and I really believe that he is going to be an undrafted free agent, which in some cases can be better because instead of the team choosing you, you can look around, find a roster, and pick your spot.
About the best scenario for you. All right, coming up next, we'll take a look ahead to the Oregon State-Arizona State baseball series this weekend.